I'm begging you. Hurry up. The Alpha King took a step closer and did the unthinkable. I'm begging you. Hurry up. The words came out broken, barely a whisper. Lyra was dying. That much was clear. Blood soaked the forest floor. Her body, shredded by rogue wolves, twitched with shallow breaths. The mark on her collarbone still glowed, faint silver, the Alpha King's mark. Kale stood over her, like death itself. 7 feet of muscle and myth. Eyes like molten gold. The kind of wolf who'd rejected 12 mates and buried his enemies without graves. She knew what came next. He killed intruders. He slaughtered tainted blood. No exceptions. So she whispered it again. Hurry up. Make it quick. Make it painless. Just end it. But Kale didn't move the way she expected. His jaw clenched. His wolf roared inside him, a sound that hadn't broken free in years. And then, slowly, deliberately, he dropped to one knee. The forest went silent. His hands that had crushed skulls and torn through armies, reached for the royal cloak on his shoulders, the one marked with his bloodline crest, the one no one had touched in a decade. He tore it free and wrapped it around her trembling body. Don't speak, he commanded, voice rough as gravel. Don't move. Lyra's eyes went wide, confused, terrified. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Welcome back, my beautiful family. If you are hooked and ready to enjoy this story, kindly support us by clicking on the subscribe button and let me know where in the world you are watching from. I will be glad to hear from you. Now, let's continue. He was supposed to reject her. He already had, in front of the entire pack at the moon gathering just hours ago. He was supposed to let her die, out here, forgotten, erased. But instead, the Alpha King slid his arms beneath her broken body and lifted her like she weighed nothing. Her blood soaked into his shirt. Her head fell against his chest. And for the first time in his brutal reign, Kale didn't care about the laws, the council, the kingdom. There was only her, marked, dying. High. The horse moved fast through the silver woods. Kale's grip was iron, but his touch was careful, terrifyingly careful for a man they called the executioner. Lyra faded in and out of consciousness. Every heartbeat felt like her last. She caught fragments. The moon overhead, cold and silver, his heartbeat beneath her ear, steady, relentless. The scent of cedar and smoke clinging to his cloak, and his voice, low and lethal, murmuring something she couldn't quite hear. Stay with me? Not a request, a command. When they reached the royal den, wolves scattered. Guards froze, mid-step. Because the Alpha King, who'd never brought anyone into his private quarters, who'd never shown weakness, who'd never protected tainted blood, was carrying a half-human girl through the gates, in his arms, wrapped in his cloak, marked with his symbol. The whispers started immediately, but Kale didn't stop, didn't explain, didn't justify. He kicked open the doors to his chamber and laid her on his bed, the bed that had never held anyone but him. He worked fast, lit the fire, boiled water with healing herbs, tore clean cloth into strips. Lyra watched through half-closed eyes, waiting for the trap, for the moment kindness turned to cruelty. It never came. He cleaned her wounds with hands that had killed hundreds, bound her broken ribs with the precision of a soldier, brushed dirt from her hair with a gentleness that didn't belong to kings. She tried to speak. Why? Quiet, not harsh, just final. When the worst of it was done, he stepped back. His shirt was ruined with her blood. His hands shook, just barely, just enough to notice. He turned toward the fire, fists clenched. A knock at the door. Sharp. Urgent. His beta, Roran, stepped inside, took one look at the girl in the royal bed, and went pale. "The council knows," Roran said quietly. "They're demanding her death. They're calling it corruption of the bloodline." Kale didn't turn. "Let them demand. My king. If you claim her, I didn't ask for your counsel. They'll call for your head too." Silence. Then Kale's voice, low and deadly. "Let them try." Roran stared at his alpha, like he didn't recognize him anymore. Then he bowed and left. Alone again, Kale looked at the girl wrapped in his cloak, in his bed, in the fate he'd tried to reject just hours ago at the gathering. And the truth settled in his chest like a blade. Saving her would start a war, but letting her die, that would destroy him. In the royal chamber, while Lyra slept beneath blankets that smelled like smoke and safety, the Alpha King made a decision, not as the ruler of 3 territories, not as the executioner who'd never shown mercy, but as the man who'd found his fated mate bleeding in the dirt and chose her over his crown. What happened next would shatter the kingdom, because mercy, in a world built on blood and dominance, is the most dangerous rebellion of all. And Kale, he was about to burn it all down. For a girl, the world threw away. Chapter 2. The moon that burned for her. Pain woke her first. Then warmth. Lyra's eyes cracked open to unfamiliar shadows dancing across stone walls. Firelight. Soft blankets. The smell of cedar and smoke. Wrong. Everything was wrong. She wasn't supposed to be warm, wasn't supposed to be breathing. The last thing she remembered was blood in her mouth, rogue teeth tearing through her shoulder, dirt in her lungs as she waited for the end. And then, golden eyes, a rough command, strong arms lifting her like she weighed nothing. Her hand flew to her collarbone. The mark was still there, hot beneath her fingertips, raised like a brand. The symbol of the Alpha King burned into her skin in silver fire. She sat up too fast. The room spun. Her ribs screamed in protest. Where the hell am I? The chamber was massive, furs piled on the bed, weapons mounted on the walls, a throne-like chair near the fire. This wasn't a guest room. This wasn't the pack healer's den. This was his room. The Alpha King's private quarters. Panic clawed up her throat. She shouldn't be here. Half-bloods didn't enter royal territory. Tainted wolves didn't sleep in the executioner's bed. They died in ditches, forgotten, erased. So why was she alive? The door slammed open. 3 elders stormed in, robes flowing like storm clouds. Their faces were carved from disgust and fury. Behind them, guards lined the corridor, hands on weapons, eyes cold. "Abomination," the first elder hissed. His name was Thorn, ancient, powerful, merciless. "You dare defile the royal chamber with tainted blood?" Lyra scrambled back against the headboard, clutching the blanket. Her voice came out small, broken. I don't know how." Silence. Elder Moira stepped forward, her silver hair pulled tight, her eyes like ice. "The mark on your skin is a curse, girl, a mistake. The moon does not choose half-breeds for kings. You will be executed at dawn," Thorn declared. "Your existence is an insult to the bloodline, to the throne, to enough." The single word dropped like a blade. Every wolf in the room went rigid. Kale stood in the doorway. He hadn't been there a second ago, but now he filled the space like a living shadow. His golden eyes swept the room, and the temperature plummeted. The elders bowed, barely, resentment dripping from every movement. "My king," Thorn said carefully, "the council has convened. The law is clear. Tainted blood cannot." "I said enough." Kyle's voice was frosty, and finite. He didn't raise it. I didn't need to. Moira's jaw clenched. You cannot protect her. The ancient laws are my laws. Cale stepped into the room, and every guard shifted backward. And I decide when they apply. The pack will not accept. Then the pack can challenge me. Silence. The kind that comes before violence. Thorne's face went purple. You would risk civil war. For this? He jabbed a finger toward Lyra like she was poison. Cale's gaze didn't leave the elder. Get out. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Thorne bowed, shallow, mocking, and swept from the room. Moira followed, her whisper sharp as she passed. This isn't over. The guards filed out. The door closed, and Lyra was alone with the Alpha King. He didn't look at her, just moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back, spine rigid. The silence stretched until it hurt. You shouldn't have saved me, Lyra whispered. Nothing. They'll kill you too, for protecting Tainted. Stop. His voice was steel. Don't call yourself that again. Her throat tightened. It's what I am. It's what they told you to be. Finally, he turned. His eyes burned in the firelight, gold in something darker. You're marked. That makes you untouchable. You rejected me. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. At the gathering, in front of everyone, you turned away. Something flickered across his face. Pain. Regret. It vanished too fast to tell. I did. Then why? Because rejecting you in public kept you alive long enough to have this conversation. The truth hit her like a fist. The rejection wasn't cruelty. It was strategy. Lyra pushed off the bed, legs shaking. I need to leave. Before this gets worse. Before she made it 3 steps. Then the mark flared. Pain exploded across her collarbone, white hot and blinding. She gasped, stumbling, hand flying to her chest. The symbol glowed through her shirt, pulsing like a second heartbeat. Cale moved without thinking. His hand caught her elbow, steadying her. The moment he touched her, the pain stopped. Both of them froze. The mark settled into a steady, warm glow. Not burning, not hurting, just alive. Responding to his proximity like a compass, finding north, Lyra looked up at him, breathless. What is this? Cale's jaw clenched. His hand was still on her arm. He stared at where their skin connected, like it might explode. The bond, he said quietly, carefully. The moon chose. Whether we accept it or not. It's real. Her pulse hammered. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. But he didn't let go, and she didn't pull away. The fire crackled. The mark hummed between them. Undeniable, unbreakable, impossible to ignore. Outside, wolves were already whispering. The council was already plotting. War was already coming. But in that moment, in the stillness between one heartbeat and the next, something shifted. Cale had protected her when he should have killed her, claimed her as untouchable when the laws demanded her death, defied his entire kingdom for a girl who'd spent 7 years being told she was worthless. Lyra's voice came out barely above a whisper. They'll destroy you for this. Cale's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw the man beneath the crown. Let them try. In a kingdom ruled by wolves, mercy was the first act of rebellion. Chapter 3. The rejection that saved her. The great hall was packed. Every wolf in the territory had been summoned. Warriors lined the walls. Elders sat in their high-backed chairs, like vultures waiting for a feast. The council stood in a semicircle before the throne, faces carved from stone and judgment. And in the center of it all, small, breakable, still healing, stood Lyra. They'd dragged her from the royal chamber at dawn. No warning, no explanation. Just guards gripping her arms and hauling her through corridors while wolves whispered and stared. Now she stood beneath the moon window, the massive skylight where sacred ceremonies were held, where judgments were passed, where wolves were condemned. The full moon burned overhead. Her mark burned hotter. Kale sat on his throne, spine rigid, face a mask of ice. He hadn't looked at her once since she'd been brought in, hadn't spoken, hadn't moved. He looked every inch the executioner. Elder Thorne stepped forward, voice booming across the hall. Alpha King, the matter before us is clear. This creature, he gestured at Lyra like she was rotting meat, bears your mark. The council demands clarification. Silence. Is she, Thorne continued, each word dripping venom, your fated mate? Every eye turned to Kale. Lyra's heart hammered so hard she thought her ribs might crack. The mark pulsed against her collarbone, responding to his presence even across the distance. She didn't know what she wanted him to say. Yes, would start a war. No, would destroy her. But maybe destruction was safer than hope. Kale rose, slowly. The room seemed to shrink around him. He descended the throne steps, boots echoing like a death march, and stopped 10 feet from where Lyra stood trembling. His golden eyes finally met hers. For one heartbeat, she saw something raw there, desperate. Please understand. Then it vanished. She is not my mate. The words hit like a blade to the chest. Gasps erupted. Whispers exploded. The crowd surged with shock and satisfaction. Lyra's knees buckled. A guard caught her elbow, the only thing keeping her upright. Not his mate. The mark on her skin flared in protest, burning like a brand denying the lie. But Kale's face remained carved from marble. The mark, Elder Moira said sharply, is proof of the moon's choice. You cannot simply... The mark is a mistake. Kale's voice cut through the noise, like thunder. The moon erred. I have no bond with this. Half-blood, no claim, no connection. Each word was a nail in a coffin. Lyra felt something inside her crack. Not her heart. She'd learned to live without one. But the fragile, stupid hope that had started growing when he wrapped his cloak around her, when he saved her, when he touched her, and the mark sang. She'd been a fool. Then the law is clear, Thorne declared, triumph dripping from every syllable. Tainted blood bearing a false mark is an abomination. She must be executed. No. Kale's tone shifted. Still cold, but absolute. Execution is for criminals. She's committed no crime. Exile will suffice. Moira's eyes narrowed. Exile? You would allow her to live? She's nothing to me. The lie came out smooth, as poison. Why waste resources on killing something irrelevant? Cast her out. Let the forest deal with her. Lyra flinched, like he'd struck her. Irrelevant. Nothing. The council exchanged glances. Thorne's mouth twisted. The Alpha King shows mercy, even to abominations. How noble. I show indifference, Kale corrected. There's a difference. Very well. Thorne turned to Lyra, smiling like a serpent. You are hereby exiled from Moon-Pact territory. You will leave before moonset. If you return, you will be killed on sight. Do you understand? Half-breed? Lyra couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She just nodded. Take her, Kale ordered the guards. His voice was empty, final. Escort her to the boundary and ensure she crosses it. He turned his back, walked back to his throne, didn't look at her again. The guards dragged Lyra toward the doors. The crowd parted like she was diseased. Some spat at her feet, others laughed. The elders watched with cold satisfaction, and the Alpha King sat motionless on his throne, staring at nothing. The guards shoved Lyra across the marker stones and disappeared into the darkness. She stood there, alone, wearing nothing but the thin clothes they'd given her. No cloak, no supplies, no protection. Nothing to me. The words echoed in her skull like a curse. She'd been stupid to think anything had changed. To think his rescue meant something. Kings didn't save girls like her. They used them, discarded them. She was an inconvenience he'd solved with exile. Lyra turned toward the silver woods, the wild forest where rogues hunted and wolves went to die, and started walking. She didn't cry. She was done crying. The crowd dispersed slowly, wolves murmuring about the half-blood, the false mark, the Alpha's cold justice. Kale remained on the throne until the last wolf left. Then he stood and walked to the moon window, staring at the forest beyond. His beta, Roran, approached carefully. "It's done, my king. She's gone. And the guards, already in position. Shadow formation, as you commanded. She won't see them, but they'll keep her alive." Kale's jaw clenched. No one knows. Not the elders, not the council. If word spreads, it won't. Silence. "You could have claimed her," Roran said quietly. "Fought the council. You're strong enough. And she'd be dead within a week." Kale's voice was raw, exhausted, poisoned, assassinated, torn apart by wolves who see her as a disease. "I can't protect her if they know she matters. So you broke her heart instead." Kyle closed his eyes. The look on her face, when he'd said those words, "She is not my mate," would haunt him forever. Better her heart than her life. Roran hesitated. And if she never understands, if she dies out there thinking you hated her. Kale's fist clenched against the stone, the mark on his own chest, hidden beneath his shirt, burning just as fierce as hers, pulsed with every beat of his breaking heart. "Then I'll live with that." He turned away from the window, away from the forest where his mate wandered, alone and hating him. "I'm sorry," he thought into the void. "I'm so sorry." But the words never left his lips. Lyra walked until her feet bled, until the moon set, until exhaustion dragged her down beneath a tree. She touched the mark on her collarbone, still glowing faintly, still responding to a bond the Alpha King had publicly destroyed. "He rejected me twice," she thought bitterly. Once at the gathering, once in front of the kingdom. The message was clear. She was nothing, had always been nothing, would die nothing. The forest swallowed her in darkness. And somewhere, miles away, an Alpha King stared at his own mark and wondered if saving her life was worth losing her soul. Sometimes, the cruelest words are spoken by those trying hardest to protect you. Chapter 4. The Forest and the Fire. 3 days in the Silver Woods, and Lyra learned something crucial. Exile doesn't kill you quickly. It is slow, piece by piece. She wandered deeper into the forest, past the safe zones, past the hunting grounds, into the parts even pack wolves avoided. Her feet were raw. Her wounds had barely closed. The mark on her collarbone pulsed like a second heartbeat, responding to nothing, aching for someone who'd called her irrelevant. Good, she thought bitterly. Let it ache. The trees here grew twisted and ancient. Moonlight barely penetrated the canopy. And everywhere, she felt them. Ghosts, not literal ones, but the memories were thick as fog. This was where her father had been executed. Somewhere among these trees, the pack had torn him apart for the crime of loving a human woman. Her mother had died here, too, bleeding out after childbirth, whispering prayers to a moon that wouldn't listen. Lyra touched the bark of a silver birch and felt the weight of their absence like a stone in her chest. "You died for me," she whispered to the shadows, "and I'm dying anyway." But then something shifted. The moonlight filtering through the leaves moved. Not with the wind, not naturally. It bent toward her, pooled at her feet, responded. Lyra stepped back, heart racing. The light followed. She raised her hand, half curiosity, half terror, and the moonlight gathered in her palm, silver and cold and alive. It didn't burn. It hummed. What the hell? A memory surfaced. Her mother's voice, faint and distant. "You carry something old, little one. Older than wolves, older than packs. Don't let them tell you it's a curse." Lyra stared at the light dancing between her fingers. This wasn't wolf magic. This was something else, something ancient. The lunar veil, the lost magic of the first wolves, the power the moon had granted to kings before the bloodlines corrupted, before strength became violence and instinct became law. Her mixed blood hadn't diluted the gift. It had preserved it. "Holy shit," she breathed. Then the forest exploded. 6 wolves. No, 7. Massive, scarred, moving with coordinated precision. Rogues, but not random ones. These wore the marks of trained fighters, ex-pack warriors. And leading them, golden fur, cold eyes, familiar scent, was Roran, Kale's beta. Lyra's blood went cold. "Hello, little half-breed." Roran shifted mid-stride, bones cracking, until he stood on 2 legs, naked and unashamed, and smiling like a predator. "The Alpha King thinks you're safe out here, hidden, protected." Her stomach dropped. Kale had guards watching her. "He's weak," Roran continued, circling. "Soft. Mercy for tainted blood? That's not an alpha. That's a fool waiting to be overthrown." "Then overthrow him." Lyra backed against a tree, hands trembling. "Leave me out of it." "Oh, you're not out of it, sweetheart." Roran's smile widened. "You're the proof. Kill you. And the pack sees their king couldn't even protect his rejected mate. His authority shatters. And well, I take what's mine." The rogues closed in. Lyra had no weapon, no backup, no way out, but she had moonlight in her veins. When the first wolf lunged, she didn't think, she reacted. Her hand shot out, and the lunar veil erupted. Silver fire exploded from her palm like a weapon forged from starlight. It slammed into the wolf mid-leap, sent him crashing into a tree with a sickening crack. The others froze. Lyra stared at her glowing hands, breathless, terrified, powerful. "What the—" Roran started. She didn't let him finish. The magic roared out of her, wild, unstable, furious. It whipped through the clearing like a storm, slamming wolves aside, tearing through bark, igniting the air itself. But she couldn't control it, couldn't stop it. The power fed on her rage, her pain, her 7 years of being called worthless, and it wanted blood. One wolf went down screaming. Another fled. Roran shifted and charged, claws extended. Then a roar split the night. Not a wolf. The wolf. Kale exploded into the clearing in full alpha form. Black fur, golden eyes, 9 feet of pure lethal force. He hit Roran like a freight train, jaws closing around Beta's throat. They rolled, fought, blood sprayed. But Lyra's magic kept spiraling. Out of control, hungry, destroying. Trees cracked, the ground split. Silver fire consumed everything in a 10-foot radius, including her. She screamed as the power turned inward, burning her from the inside out. Then arms, human arms, wrapped around her. Kale had shifted back. He pulled her against his chest, one hand over her glowing mark, his voice rough in her ear. Breathe. Focus on my voice. Pull it back. I can't. Yes, you can. His grip tightened, anchoring. You're stronger than this. Stronger than the magic. Stronger than what they told you. Breathe. Her lungs obeyed before her mind did. In, out. In, out. The fire dimmed, flickered, died. Lyra collapsed against him, shaking violently. The clearing was a crater. Trees scorched, earth torn. 2 wolves dead, the rest scattered. Roran was gone, fled into the darkness. Cale held her as she trembled, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. You came, she whispered, confused, hurt, relieved. I never left. She pulled back enough to see his face. Blood on his jaw, exhaustion in his eyes. But something else too. Fear, not of the rogues. Of her, of what she'd just unleashed. What am I? Lyra's voice cracked. Cale stared at the destruction around them, the raw, ancient power she'd wielded without training, without control. His answer came quietly, awed, terrified. Something the world forgot. Power without control is destruction, and for the first time, he feared her. Chapter 5, The Unthinkable Mercy. The sanctuary was a secret, carved into the mountain itself. Cale had carried her for miles, through hidden passes, across frozen streams, up paths that didn't exist on any map. By the time they arrived, dawn was bleeding across the horizon, and Lyra's body had gone numb. He kicked open a stone door concealed behind a waterfall. Inside, warmth, firelight from braziers that burned without fuel, ancient wolf carvings covering the walls. A space untouched by time, known only to those who'd worn the crown. Royal bloodline, Cale said quietly, laying her on a bed of furs. My father brought me here once. Said it was where kings came to remember they were mortal. Lyra's hands still trembled from the magic she'd unleashed. Why bring me? Because you need to heal, and I need... He stopped, jaw clenched. I need to know you're safe. Before she could respond, he moved to a basin in the corner, filling it with water from an underground spring. When he returned, he knelt beside her, not standing over her, not commanding, kneeling. Let me see, he said. She hesitated, then slowly lifted her torn shirt, revealing the burns the lunar veil had left across her ribs, the claw marks from the rogues, the bruises from 3 days of surviving alone. Cale's expression darkened. His fingers hovered over her skin, careful, reverent, before touching. The first press of the cool cloth made her flinch. I'm sorry, he murmured, softer than she'd ever heard him. You're an alpha king, Lyra said through gritted teeth. You don't apologize. Maybe I should start. He worked in silence, cleaning wounds, applying salve that smelled like mountain herbs and something older. His hands, those brutal, deadly hands, moved with impossible gentleness. Every touch sent electricity through the bond. The mark on her collarbone pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Why did you lie? The question tore out of her. In the great hall. You said I was nothing. Cale's hands stilled. I said what I had to. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Bullshit. Lyra grabbed his wrist, forcing him to look at her. You rejected me twice. Exile me. Called me irrelevant in front of the entire kingdom. And then you show up in the forest, like some kind of... Like I was protecting you? His voice was sharp now, raw. Because I was... By destroying me? By keeping you alive. The words echoed through the sanctuary. Cale pulled away, pacing like a caged wolf. You don't understand. The council wanted you dead. Not exiled. Not imprisoned. Dead. They were going to execute you at dawn for corrupting the royal bloodline. Lyra's breath caught. If I claimed you, if I admitted the bond was real, they would have killed you the moment my back turned. Poison, accident, rogue attack. His hands fisted. I've seen it happen. I've ordered political threats. So you made me believe you hated me instead. I made them believe it too. He turned, eyes burning gold in the firelight. The rejection was the only way to make you worthless in their eyes. Irrelevant, not worth killing, just exile and forget. The truth hit like a fist to the chest. The guards in the forest, Lyra whispered. You sent them. Every night, shadow formation. You weren't supposed to see them. I didn't. Good, he exhaled. Until Roran figured it out. Until he decided you were the perfect way to prove I'd gone weak. Silence fell between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Lyra stared at the man who'd saved her 3 times now, who'd wrapped her in his cloak, who'd publicly destroyed her to privately protect her, who knelt before her like she was something precious instead of tainted. You gave up your beta, she said. Your council's trust, the pack's respect. For me, I didn't give up anything I wasn't willing to lose. Why? Kyle crossed the space between them, knelt again. This time, he took her hand, calloused fingers wrapping around hers. Because the moment the moon marked you, you stopped being a choice. His voice dropped, vulnerable, terrified. And somewhere between finding you in that forest and watching you nearly die, you became the only thing that mattered. Lyra's eyes burned. I'm still tainted, still half human, still the strongest wolf I've ever met. He squeezed her hand. You survived 7 years of a pack that wanted you erased. You walked into exile without breaking. You wielded ancient magic without training and lived. You're not weak, Lyra. You never were. A tear slipped down her cheek. I hated you, she whispered. I know. I wanted to hate you. I know. But I can't. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I can't either. The bond flared between them. Not painful this time. Just right, like 2 pieces finally fitting together. Lyra looked at the Alpha King kneeling before her, blood still on his skin from fighting his own beta, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. He'd waged a silent war to keep her alive. And maybe, just maybe, that was what love looked like when it came from someone who'd forgotten how to feel anything at all. Stay, Kyle said quietly. Just for tonight. Let me keep you safe. Lyra nodded. He pulled her close. And for the first time since the moon had marked her, she let herself believe that maybe being chosen wasn't a curse. Maybe it was mercy in disguise. Maybe mercy wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the beginning of love. Chapter 6. The Beta's Betrayal. Roran limped into the capital at dawn, covered in blood that wasn't his. He'd rehearsed the story twice on the journey back, made sure the wounds looked authentic, deep enough to bleed, shallow enough to survive, tore his own clothes for effect. By the time he reached the Great Hall, half the pack had already gathered. The king, he gasped, collapsing dramatically at the base of the throne steps. He's lost. Elderthorn descended like a vulture to carrion. What happened? The half-breed. Roran's voice cracked perfectly. She's bewitched him. I found them in the forest. She was wielding dark magic. Unnatural. Ancient. When I tried to intervene, to protect my alpha, he let the silence do the work. He attacked you. Moira's eyes gleamed. The Alpha King attacked his own beta? He's not himself. Roran looked up, eyes wide with manufactured fear. She's in his head, twisting him. I barely escaped with my life. Whispers erupted. Wolves turned to one another, shock rippling through the crowd. "I told you," Thorn said, voice rising. "The tainted blood has corrupted him. This is what happens when an alpha shows weakness, when he lets mercy cloud his judgment." "He exiled her," someone shouted from the crowd. "He said she meant nothing. And yet he guards her in secret," Roran countered. "Standing now, playing wounded soldiers, shadow formations, elite warriors. Does that sound like nothing to you?" More whispers, louder now. "He lied to the council," Moira said coldly. "Deceived the pack, protected an abomination while claiming to uphold our laws. That's treason," an elder declared. "That's bewitchment," Roran corrected. "Our king is compromised, and if we don't act—" He let his gaze sweep the room. "How long before he brings her back? Makes her queen? Taints the entire bloodline?" The crowd erupted. Thorn raised his hand for silence. When it came, his voice was iron. "The council will convene immediately. No proclamation, no witnesses, just the elders, Roran, and a handful of the oldest pack warriors locked in the council chamber. The law is clear," Thorn began. "An alpha who abandons his duty, who lies to his council, who protects enemies of the pack, can be challenged." "Challenged, yes," another elder said carefully. "But removed? If the pack agrees, he's unfit." Moira's smile was razor thin. "And I believe they will." Roran leaned forward. "Give me 3 days. I'll show you just how far he's fallen. When the pack sees the truth, when they witness his mercy for what it really is, they'll beg for new leadership. And you believe you're worthy to lead?" Thorn's tone was mocking, but his eyes were calculating. "I believe the pack deserves an alpha who puts them first, not some half-blood witch who crawled out of the dirt." The elders exchanged glances. 3 days, Thorn agreed. "Bring proof, real proof, and we'll call for a vote of no confidence." Roran smiled. The coup had begun. Something was wrong. The usual patrol formations were off. Guards who should have greeted him stayed silent. Eyes that normally met him with respect now slid away. He'd left Lyra at the sanctuary, healing, safe, hidden, and returned to handle kingdom business. Reports of rogue activity, trade disputes, the 100 tedious things that came with a crown. But the air tasted like conspiracy. He dismounted in the courtyard. 2 guards approached, slowly, hands near weapons. "My king," one said carefully, too carefully. "The council requests your presence." "Since when do I answer requests?" The guard flinched. "It's urgent." Kale's wolf growled beneath his skin. He scanned the courtyard. More guards than usual, positioned strategically, wolves clustered in whispering groups. "They're planning something." "Where's Roran?" he demanded. "In the great hall." "My king, with the elders." Of course he was. Kyle strode toward the hall, but the guards didn't follow with their usual confidence. They trailed behind, hesitant, like they weren't sure whose orders to follow anymore. He shoved open the doors. The hall was packed, elders on their platform, Roran standing before them, arm in a sling, face bruised, and wolves, hundreds of them, lining the walls. This wasn't a meeting. It was a tribunal. Thorn's voice rang out. "Alpha King, we've heard disturbing reports." Kale's eyes locked on Roran. The beta didn't look away, didn't show fear. He looked triumphant. "Reports," Kale said flatly, "from a traitor who attacked an unarmed wolf in the forest?" Gasps. Roran's expression shifted to wounded shock. "My king, I only tried to protect you. You tried to kill her." The half-breed bewitched you. She wielded dark magic, unnatural power. The lunar veil, Kale corrected coldly, is older than your bloodline, Roran. It's not dark. It's sacred. Sacred. Moira stood, voice sharp. You defend her, openly, after swearing she meant nothing? The crowd murmured. Kale felt the room shifting against him. I defend the truth, he said. The truth, Thorn declared, is that you've lied to this council, protected tainted blood in violation of pack law, attacked your own beta. He's a traitor, working with Bloodridge rogues. Prove it. Silence. Kale had no proof, only instinct, only the certainty that Roran had orchestrated this perfectly. The council, Thorn continued, calls for a vote of confidence to determine whether you are fit to continue as Alpha King. The room erupted. Kale's world narrowed. This was it, the challenge, wrapped in politics instead of claws, but just as deadly. He could fight, kill everyone in this room if he had to, but that would prove their point. Before he could speak, the doors exploded open. Every head turned. She was still healing. Bruises on her arms, cuts barely closed, but she moved like a queen stepping into her throne room. The sanctuary cloak Kale had given her was billowed behind her, and her mark, God's, her mark, glowed silver white against her collarbone, bright enough to light the dim hall, impossible to ignore. You left, Kale said, voice tight. You think I'd let you face them alone? Lyra stopped beside him. Not behind, beside. I'm done hiding. The elders stared in shock. The crowd shifted, uncertain, because the mark wasn't just glowing. It was responding. Kale's own mark, hidden beneath his shirt, flared in answer. The bond is visible to everyone. Undeniable. Real. The witch, someone whispered. The abomination. Enough. Lyra's voice cracked like a whip. She met the crowd's eyes, unafraid. You want to know the truth? Fine. The moon chose me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. But the bond is real. And your king, she turned to Kale, has done nothing but protect me from a pack that wanted me dead for the crime of being born. Silence. He rejected me publicly to save my life, she continued. Exile me to keep the council from executing me. Fought his own beta when Roran tried to murder me in the forest. And now you call him the traitor? Thorn's face went purple. You dare. I dare. The lunar veil sparked at her fingertips, just enough to make wolves step back. Because mercy isn't weakness. And if you can't see that, then maybe this kingdom deserves to burn. The wolves' instincts warred visibly. Fear of her power, awe of the mark. Centuries of prejudice against the truth standing right in front of them. Kale looked at her. This broken, beautiful, brave, a girl who'd walked into the fire for him, and something in his chest shattered and reformed. Roran laughed, sharp, mocking. You see, she admits it, threatens to burn the kingdom. This is what happens when an alpha goes soft. Then challenge me, Kale said quietly. Deadly. The room went silent. What? You want my throne? Take it. Kale stepped forward. Traditional challenge. You and me. No politics, no council. Just claws and will. Roran's smile faltered, because they both knew how that would end. Or, Kale continued, keep hiding behind elders and pretty words. Prove you're exactly what I always knew you were, a coward. The kingdom would burn before it bowed to mercy. Chapter 7. The Battle of Silver Blood. The royal den shook with the thunder of war. Roran's army descended like a plague of fangs and fury, crashing through the outer defenses as midnight swallowed the sky. Howls split the darkness. Primal, bloodthirsty, endless. Steel sang against claws. Blood painted the stone corridors in ribbons of crimson and shadow. Kyle moved through the chaos like a storm given flesh. His wolf form was magnificent, massive, silver black, eyes burning gold with an alpha's rage. He tore through Roran's forces with ruthless precision, each movement a symphony of power and violence. Bones shattered beneath his jaws. Bodies flew like scattered leaves. He was vengeance. He was fury. He was the wrath of the moon itself. But they kept coming, wave after wave of corrupted wolves. Their eyes, hollow with Roran's dark influence, surged through the halls. The royal guard fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered, overwhelmed, dying. Lyra stood at the heart of the great hall, her breath coming in sharp bursts, her pulse hammering against her ribs. She'd shifted, fought, killed, but it wasn't enough. They were losing. No, she felt it then. The pull, the power that had always lived beneath her skin, coiled and waiting. The lunar veil, it rose like a tide, ancient and absolute, burning through her veins with silver fire. Her eyes ignited, pure moonlight, bright enough to blind. The air around her shimmered, rippling with ethereal energy as the veil wrapped her skin in threads of liquid starlight. A corrupted wolf lunged. Lyra raised her hand. Silver flame erupted from her palm, tearing through the attacker like paper. He didn't scream. He simply dissolved, his shadow-twisted form unraveling into ash and memory. Another came. Then 3 more. She moved like light itself, fluid, impossible to touch, impossible to stop. The lunar veil blazed brighter with each heartbeat, a corona of silver fire that carved through Roran's darkness like dawn through nightmare. Across the hall, Kale felt it, felt her. The bond between them flared, brilliant and unbreakable, and for one crystalline moment, they locked eyes. Alpha and mate, storm and light, 2 halves of a single, devastating whole. They moved as one. Kale's raw power and Lyra's celestial fire combined into something the world had never seen. A force so pure, so absolute, that even the moon seemed to bow in recognition. Where Kale shattered their enemies with tooth and claw, Lyra followed with silver flame, purging the corruption, cleansing the darkness. They became legend in motion, an unstoppable tide that swept through Roran's army like divine judgment. The corrupted wolves began to falter, to flee, and then, through the carnage, he appeared. Roran, massive, scarred, his eyes burning with ancient hatred and madness. He shifted mid-stride, his human form towering and terrible, shadows writhing around him like living things. "You think you've won?" His voice was a razor dragged across stone. "You've won? Nothing." Kale shifted too, standing before his mate, power radiating from every line of his bloodied body. "You're finished, Roran." Lyra stepped forward, the lunar veil blazing around her like a second skin. "Your darkness has no place here. Not anymore." Roran smiled, a broken, twisted thing. "Then come, little moon. Let me show you what real power looks like." The final battle began. And when the dawn came, the wolves that once hunted her now howled her name. Chapter 8. The Quiet After the War. The pyres burned for 3 days. Bodies were laid to rest with honor. Wolves who had fought for their kingdom, who had bled and died to reclaim what Roran's madness had stolen. The smoke rose, like prayers to the moon, carrying their spirits home. The royal den stood scarred, but standing, its stone walls cracked and blood-stained, testament to the price of freedom. The kingdom was broken, but it was theirs again. Lyra woke to golden light, filtering through heavy curtains, soft and warm against her closed eyelids. Her body ached, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that came from pushing the lunar veil beyond its limits. Every muscle protested as she shifted, but the pain was distant, muted, because his hand was in hers. She turned her head slowly, finding Cale beside her in the massive bed, propped against the headboard. He wasn't sleeping, probably hadn't slept at all. His silver-black hair fell loose around his face, shadows bruising the skin beneath his eyes. Cuts and half-healed wounds marked his bare chest, souvenirs of the battle that had nearly consumed them all. But he was alive. They both were. "You're staring," she whispered, her voice rough from disuse. "I know." His thumb traced circles against her palm, slow and reverent. "I can't seem to stop." For the first time since she'd been dragged to this kingdom in chains, there was no crown between them, no throne, no war, no masks, just Cale, raw and unguarded, looking at her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. Lyra. Her name on his lips was a prayer, a confession. "Do you remember, in the cells, before everything, you begged me to hurry?" Her breath caught. She remembered the desperation, the fear, the way she'd pleaded with him to see her before it was too late. His jaw tightened, and something broke behind his golden eyes. "You didn't know I was already running toward you." The words shattered something in her chest. All this time, all the walls he'd built, the distance he'd kept, the coldness he'd worn like armor, and beneath it all, he'd been running, fighting against duty and destiny and his own pride, racing towards the one thing that terrified him more than any enemy. Her, them, this. Tears blurred her vision, spilling hot and soft as dawn across her cheeks. She'd survived a war, survived betrayal and blood, and the weight of power that could have destroyed her. But this, his vulnerability, his truth, laid bare, undid her completely. "Then don't stop," she breathed, her voice breaking. "Don't ever stop." Cale moved then, swift and sure, gathering her against his chest like she was something precious, something worth every scar, every sacrifice. His forehead pressed to hers, his breath warm against her lips. "I won't," he promised, the words a vow more binding than any spoken before the moon. "I can't. You're my ending, Lyra, my beginning, everything." She kissed him then, soft and slow, and full of all the words they'd never said, full of futures they'd almost lost, full of dawn after the longest night. When they finally pulled apart, she smiled through her tears. "Stay with me, just stay." The Alpha King, who had commanded armies and conquered enemies, who had never bowed to anyone, and for once, the Alpha King obeyed. Chapter 9. The Unthinkable Kindness. Under the next full moon, the elders kneel before Cale and Lyra. He declares the end of bloodline laws, that no birth, no name, no curse will define worth again. The packs howl together for the first time in decades. At the ridge overlooking the forest, Lyra whispers, "Sometimes the unthinkable isn't cruelty, it's kind." Cale wraps his cloak, the same one from that first night, around her shoulders. As dawn rises, the story closes with a quiet, poetic reflection. Even monsters can learn to kneel, and broken girls can learn to rise. Somewhere, under the same moon, another voice whispers, "I'm begging you, hurry up." But this time, the one who answers might just save her. Thank you for watching this story to the end.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one. And don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share with your loved ones if you enjoyed the story. I value you.